Hi everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This feels, I don't know why I feel nervous. I don't know why I feel nervous, but I am recording a video that's, I guess, a different style to normal. I normally do vlogs and bring you guys behind the scenes. This is definitely a behind the scenes video, but I guess a behind the scenes video of a different type, where I actually just wanted to sit and explain a very big change. I recently very briefly mentioned this on my Instagram stories and got so many questions. Lots of the same questions as well, which was just like, why are you doing this? But also it's something that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about online. So a big deep breath. Feels like a big one to say out loud, but James and I are selling our property and rental property portfolio. So all of the rental properties are going, and today I kind of just wanted to explain why, the financial reasons, the admin weight of being landlords, and actually what we're planning to do instead, because that's a separate story that's quite exciting. So I guess I have never really spoken about being a landlord, landlady. Whenever I say the word landlady, it makes me feel like, is it Pat Butcher? Is that the woman's name on EastEnders? Because she's the landlady of a pub. That's what I always feel like, which is why I always avoid talking about it. I feel very, I was gonna say lucky, but I work very hard. But there is still like an air of what I feel feels like privilege, even having these conversations and talking about rental properties. But I'm just gonna park that for a second, because I think we should all be talking about this. I was not raised with the level of income that I've worked very, very hard to build. And so I need to hear more people talking about this. And I don't need people talking about rental properties with like hustle culture, bro vibes, like invest your cash here, here and here. I just need someone to like sit back in their chair and be like, this is what we're doing. This is not financial advice. Let's get into it. So to set the scene, James and I have been investors in property since we bought our house, the one we live in 2020, and then we bought our first rental property in 2021, second in 2022, and have carried on. So we built up a small, again, I feel like when you say the word portfolio, it makes it sound like you've got 20. It's a very small portfolio of buy-to-let properties. All of them are owned personally. They are actually in one of our hometowns because we know the area really well. We live in Oxfordshire, which is very expensive, and so our hometowns are a bit more north, and so they're a little bit more affordable for buy-to-lets and rental properties than it is where we live. So it gives us a bit of distance from the rental properties as well, but it's close enough, and like we go there enough to see family, that it's still always made it really convenient and made it make a lot of sense. So we own them personally and we manage them personally as well. We've always self-managed. We really wanted to do that. Firstly, we're self-employed, so we do have a lot of flexibility over time. So if anything ever needed sorted, we had the time to do it. And we kind of wanted to see what the process was like before we ever decided to outsource it. So would be open to outsourcing it in the future, because I definitely feel like we will become landlords again in the future. If I was doing it again, I probably would outsource it, but I'll come on to that. So we self-own them personally, as in not through a limited company, and we manage it all personally as well. But even in the short amount of time since we became landlords, the landscape has shifted, and it shifted very, very quickly. So what was once a very smart long-term play for us, to be honest, is a lot of hassle, and the risk versus financial return is just not there anymore, given our long-term plans, which I'll come on to. So there's basically like 6 reasons why we're selling the properties. I'm very aware I'm going to record this video and I'm going to jinx it, because as of today we have offers accepted on them, but they haven't actually sold yet, and I'm pretty sure recording this video is going to jinx it. So if you jinx it, I'll be very angry. But I can basically break down why we're selling them into 6 reasons and what that means for our future plan. The first reason is a reduction in capital gains tax. So we obviously have to start with the tax side. It's not sexy, but it's really important. So when you sell a property in the UK that has increased in value from when you bought it to when you sold it, you pay capital gains tax unless it's your main home. The capital gains tax allowance has been slashed in recent years, and so it's currently August 2025, and we actually decided to put the houses on the market in the build up to the spring statement 2025 because we knew capital gains was going to get impacted based on the reports that were coming out. So it used to be £12,000 per person, and it's been reduced to £3,000 per person. 3,000. I also, side quest, ran on capital gains tax. I feel like capital gains tax should be measured against, like, it should have a deduction for inflation. So if we bought a house in 2021 and we're selling it in 2025, I do understand capital gains tax, I don't disagree with it. I do think there should be an adjustment for inflation because I'm being taxed on inflation, which if that wasn't in a property, I wouldn't be taxed on inflation. Anyway, that math, don't math. So there were rumblings up to the spring statement that that was going to happen, and so we actually put them on the market quite a bit before the spring statement came out, in the hope that we would actually be able to exchange and complete on them before capital gains tax changed. But the market ain't marketing, and it's August and now we've sold them. So we are here, but capital gains tax has played a huge role in why we actually started selling them, because we wanted to sell them before capital gains tax changed. Again, it kind of just means that the way more of the gain is taxed, and because we own the properties personally, we don't get the same reliefs that we might have if they were put in a company structure. The reason we bought them personally in the first place is because we never planned to sell them and make a gain. We always just wanted to pass them to our kids. That was kind of our pension pot and an investment pot for our children. And so with a lot of that changing and us kind of realising that we probably would sell them one day, we decided it kind of felt like a bit of a ticking time bomb, and the longer we held on to the properties, the more tax we would likely pay when we eventually sell. And so we decided to sell now while we have some capital gains allowance, despite it not being very much. So the second reason is that mortgage interest isn't tax deductible anymore, which is quite a big change that has impacted lots of landlords. And so if you own rental properties personally, like we do, you used to be able to deduct the mortgage interest from your rental income before you calculated your tax. That's no longer the case, and so you get a 20% tax credit instead, which for higher rate taxpayers, which James and I are, just doesn't cut it. So it means that our rental income looks a lot higher on paper, but in reality the costs are still there, and actually just the tax is bigger. So again, we're being taxed more on income that isn't really income, and that's just made the returns not stack up for us anymore, because every year we do a big analysis on return on investment and trying to calculate how much time we've invested into the properties as well. The third reason is stamp duty has gone wild. So buying property has become even more expensive thanks to additional stamp duty charges for second homes. Again, this is why I feel like I always avoid talking about it, because it's a privileged position, it's a champagne problem to have, but it is still a problem. I feel like when you work so hard to do these things, it just feels so frustrating to be taxed like this. So we already swallowed the extra 3% on our previous purchases, but it's just not something that we were willing to do again. To be honest, the biggest reason that all of this has come to a head is because we really feel like in the next few years, like I don't know when it's going to happen, in the next few years we will be looking for our forever home. So when looking for a forever home, it's obviously going to be a large investment property, and we're going to be stung on stamp duty again, even though we're literally selling properties in order to be able to buy that one. So it's incredibly frustrating, and it made us realise that we'd actually rather put our capital into one property, which is a forever home, than keep juggling multiple properties just to try and keep ahead of tax changes. So us buying a forever home is probably the biggest reason, because when, like I said earlier, when we bought these properties, we never really planned to sell them, but we've been doing a lot of reflecting recently. Again, our financial situation, the size of the business is just far beyond where we ever thought it would be, and so a lot of the decisions that we made a few years ago, we're now like, wow, like our life has changed a lot, and our personal portfolio building as a whole has to come first, rather than trying to like split everything. And so we've been looking at forever homes, and so when we're considering our like total capital, it just doesn't make sense to have such a tax drain in the rental properties when we could actually be not paying that tax, moving that capital into a larger property, get a smaller mortgage, pay less interest, and overall reduce the tax profile. So cue forever home. Hopefully we have to manifest it for us in the next few years. Again, it's not an immediate change, but these are things that you just have to plan so far in advance, because if we'd found a forever home like now and we had to sell all these houses and our house in order to buy it, we would have lost the forever home. And so we're trying to do it proactively now to get our ducks in a row, which you can probably tell with all of these other reasons has just meant that it's felt like the right decision for us. The fourth reason, I promise there's only 6. The fourth reason that we are selling is because there's been some really interesting new rules on short-term lets and Airbnb. So for clarity, our portfolio is long-term rentals, like between 2 to 3 year rentals. And we never went down the full Airbnb route. But when we're thinking about building the portfolio, we have a Manchester office, and so we really seriously for a long time looking at buying maybe a flat or a small property in Manchester for us and the team to be able to use and stay when we're in Manchester, but for the rest of the time rent it out on Airbnb for short-term rentals. But The government and the tax system had other plans. So the option for switching rentals to short-term rentals or buying a rental property for short-term rentals used to be a nice little plan. But now new legislation is coming in and is actually already active depending on where you live, and Manchester for us is specifically one of them, requiring planning permission in order to operate Airbnb in specific city centres. I understand why they're doing it. They're doing it to make sure that cities remain residential, or to actually try and buy back some residential property as opposed to it all being Airbnb, but it was just a bit frustrating for us. And again, there's lots of talk of mandatory registration schemes, limits on the number of days per year, local council rules, and honestly, it was just a lot. And so just feel like we got to a crossroads where we were like, we either have to double down and continue building this portfolio, or I think we just need to review if this is actually worth it. And so with that as well, with the Manchester office, that would have been such a lovely opportunity for us to be able to provide a lot of opportunities for the offices to meet and for us to be able to travel really cost effectively. But we kind of just saw it as the writing on the wall. Like, it seemed like it was just getting harder and harder to pivot your strategy if the long-term lets don't work out, and a lot of the flexibility is gone. The fifth reason is tenants. I hate to say it because we have always had amazing tenants, and let me be honest, most of them have been amazing, and we've absolutely loved providing amazing homes to amazing people. And like, when I tell you, as somebody who has rented before, I'm just the best landlord ever. I can't lie. I have rented many times in my life, and I used to get so frustrated that you weren't allowed pets. In some places I had to like get permission to put anything on the wall, even if I was just using command strips. And so a lot of our processes and a lot of our like values as landlords has been built around just making it easy for people, because if you make it feel like their home, they'll treat it like that home, and that's always worked really, really well for us. But we have had a few situations which kind of made us question whether we wanted the emotional and the financial responsibilities of being landlords long term. So like very basic maintenance requests, sometimes missed rent payments, confusion over what's the landlord's responsibility versus theirs, and it became quite like draining. Again, we are like business owners, and it increasingly felt like the mental load of managing the tenants was getting very, very high for the return that we were getting when you consider all of the tax implications as well. Yeah, and again, the sixth reason is the forever home. This is the home that we hope to live in for a very, very long time, and we haven't found it yet, but in the next few years we would really like to start looking. But because we already own our property and the other properties, we would be hit with just very high levels of stamp duty, and it just feels like we're being punished for trying to do that. And so when we ran the numbers, we basically realised that we could sell the portfolio, pay capital gains tax now, put that capital into a home that we really want to live in with a lower mortgage rate, lower interest rate. And so it kind of feels like a bit of a financial reset for us, and one that gave us way more freedom and peace of mind. This is a very yappy video, but I like intentionally made notes of all of the reasons to make sure I answered your questions. So what does that mean now? That means we are going to sell those properties. We're going to find a home for that cash because I don't know where you put that cash in a short-term basis. Like, we need to work out where to put that cash. We obviously have an incredible financial advisor who's doing that for us behind the scenes. Need to work out where to put that money before we get a mortgage again on a forever home. Does this mean we'll never invest in property again? No. I definitely don't feel like it's the end of being landlords for us. I think property is an incredible safe investment. I think it's a brilliant way to, you know, make sure your children will always be looked after if you're not here. But I think if we do, it will probably be through quite a different lens, maybe through a company structure with, I don't want to say better tax planning, because for the outcome that we thought we were going to have, it was definitely the best tax strategy to buy them personally. But I think if we were to do it again, we would probably do it a little bit differently and with more succession planning and boundaries in place. But for now, we're stepping away, and I'm just so excited for the next like stage of life, and you know, to be looking at homes that I only ever saw in movies when I was a kid, and is just so different from like my upbringing. Yeah, so we're putting our money somewhere temporarily and then long term back into a home that we love. We are reprioritizing like time freedom over, to be honest, a false sense of passive income for like the tax and the time. So I hope this helps, but again, I very rarely hear people talk about being landlords in a way that's always felt like how it's actually felt for me. Obviously nothing that I have mentioned in this video is tax advice, none of it is financial advice, all of it is my opinion and my personal experience, but it's so fascinating to have champagne problems and problems that come with working so hard and building such a strong financial situation for yourself. And for me, you know, I think a lot of people with these situations and with these things would ask like parents for advice, and I think for James and I, we have worked incredibly hard to the point where our parents can't help us with these problems because they're problems that they've never had before. And so it's really interesting to, I don't know, go through these situations and feel like, I don't know, and yeah, definitely probably the first person in my family to have these problems, which is really interesting. So I'm waffling now, but I wanted to speak about it very openly and honestly because I, for a long time, was very shy about our financial success, and I think I feel shy because of the stigma, and the stigma makes me shy, so I need to stop it and I need to talk more about it. And so few people are in this position, and I have, you know, both James and I have worked so hard to get to this point, and so I'm really proud. I'm so proud that, you know, we've been able to have, I think over the last 4 years we've had 3 or 4 families with like animals, and like we've just given them all like such an incredible home for such a long time. I'm really, really proud of that, and I'm really proud of us for just coming to a decision that means we're putting ourselves first and having just weighed everything up in a very considered fashion. Hopefully this will be helpful to someone else. As always, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Let me know in the comments if you have any follow-up questions. Let me know in the comments if this style of video was nice. I wanted to sit down and just yap and have a bit of a catch up because I've been vlogging and vlogging and vlogging, but sometimes that means we don't have the deep chats where I'm being really intentional with answering questions. So please let me know in the comments what you thought of this video. Please let me know if this helped you as well, because it's hard to put yourself out there and talk about like your finances and your investments and all of those things. So I would love to hear from you in the comment section. If this was helpful, it would mean the world to me actually, and probably give me a little confidence boost. So thank you so much for spending some time with me today, and I hope to see you again very soon.